Okay, welcome friends. Today's topic is on learning more about home inspection. Let me just tell you, it was November 5th on a Sunday morning when my wife and I went to see a property in Bellwood. Okay, this property needed a lot of work. And then we were thinking about, well, should we get an inspection? Should we not get an inspection? So we decided, well, we've done enough deals that, we feel confident we can skip the inspection today. But friends, guess what happened? So we skipped the inspection, so we saved about 400 or so. And then we ended up closing on this property in Bellwood just to find out that it was a piece of junk, believe it or not. So what happened is that we tried to get rid of the property by doing nothing to it. Okay, well, guess what? That didn't work out. So we put it in the MLS. We tried to wholesale the property just to make $10,000. I mean, we would settle with 5,000, but unfortunately, we could not wholesale the property. So now, guess what, friends? We're stuck with the property. Everything needed to be done on the property, from plumbing, electric, roof, some windows, or most of the windows, kitchen, bathrooms. So right now we're at 55,000 and we're not even 3/4 of the way done. So friends, learn from this experience. We highly recommend you always do an inspection when you have a property in the contract. So what is an inspection? Why did we decide to bring George Hyatt? Because an inspection on the house is not necessary, but it's highly recommended, because think of it as a cheap insurance. So George, when he does his inspection, he's gonna point out all the systems in the property, from roof, ventilation, mechanicals, flooring, structure, electric, plumbing, everything in the house. Why is that so critical? Because you're going to be able to identify potential issues in the property that are going to be very expensive, or is going to allow you to back out of the deal completely. So once you get the property on the contract, you have about 5 business days to do your attorney review and inspection. So take advantage of those days to do your due diligence by bringing George Hyatt as your inspector. How is he going to help you? He's going to point out all the material defects in the property, okay? And not only that, but he's going to refer you to the experts in case he sees potential issues on different areas that they're not able to test thoroughly, such as termites, mold, radon, switch line issues. But at least George is going to be able to give you a thorough inspection report in the property. Now, when you work with an inspector, in this case, we have George on the line. You have the option to do a walk-in inspection versus an inspection that George is going to generate a report. Okay, so we highly recommend to do an inspection that will have a report attached to it. Right? Because even if you do that report, it's credit from the seller. It's critical for you to have something in writing. In the past, we've done, I believe, 1 or 2 walk-in inspections. Guess what happens? You don't have pictures. All you have is just the inspection report verbally, okay? So that is not enough, because guess what? You can forget, right? And you cannot use that to get credits from the seller. So we highly recommend you get an inspection written report, okay? So having said that, I'm gonna turn it over to George. We're gonna go over what an inspection looks like, okay? So he recently did an inspection on a property in Lansing, okay? So having said that, George, let's get started. I'm gonna pull up the report so you can go over that. So is everyone able to see my screen right now? Perfect. So I'm gonna unmute you, George. So go ahead, George. You can start, and then I'm gonna scroll through the report just to make sure that everyone sees the pictures. Go ahead, George.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you before. My speakers were muted.
Yeah, no, I can hear you very well.
Okay.
Can everyone hear George okay?
Okay. We did this property two days ago, I think. And she was a brand new investor, and her repair cost she thought would be around $15,000. So, which on a little small house, it's 750 square feet, 2 bedrooms, and 1 bathroom with an unfinished basement. So from the pictures, the house looks like it's pretty straightforward until we start getting into the inspection, and you will see what we found. But just from this picture here, it looks like a nice stone house, nice new roof. Windows don't look bad. We've got some overgrown bushes, maybe some paint on the front porch. But when we get up closer, we find quite a few more problems. So that's why I agree with Hugo. I get emotional when I buy houses. When I go into your house, I'm not going to be emotional. I'm there to make sure that you don't make a mistake. And we just point out the major defects. We're not there to tell you that it has ugly carpet and ugly walls and stuff like that. We're just there to make sure that you don't make a mistake. Now, if you could see in this picture, one thing I will say is there's a big tree here in the front yard, and there's one actually that you can't see just on the other side. I always look at that when I'm buying a house, because if the tree's 50 foot high, it's going to be 50 foot of roots in the ground, and that can heave foundations, sidewalks. And when I see that, that wouldn't totally scare me away, but I would highly recommend rotting out the sewer right away, just in case there's tree roots. So, all right, Hugo, you can scroll through. So when people ask me, what do you check on a house when you're doing an inspection, I pretty much check. It's easier to answer what I don't check. The only thing I can't check is what's in between the walls. Sometimes on these bank-owned properties, the water's off, power's off, stuff like that. That's I would always recommend having a contingency for that, even if the house is winterized. It could have been vacant for 2 years before they winterized it, and you could have broken pipes in the walls. So that's one of the unfortunate things when you're buying these junkers is sometimes the power's off, sometimes the water's off. So I can't test what if the power and water is not on. So on this picture here, there's a couple issues with this. One is that there's no rain cap. Typically birds can make nests up in there. All the water goes in there, leaves can go in there. So I would definitely, that was one issue. And typically, unless the furnace is 35, 40 years old, it's going to have a mid-efficient furnace. Basically what that does, it creates a lot of moisture inside this chimney. With all that moisture, it can freeze, and I don't know if you've ever seen a chimney where it's crumbling, and typically it's crumbling and the mortar's missing because there's no liner in the chimney. So not only does it need a liner, it needs the rain cap. And then what they do is the heating guys will just run a B-vent right down the chimney, and it keeps that moisture from getting into the brick and the mortar. Okay, next picture. All right, this picture here is a picture of the fascia. The dark brown is the fascia, the underside is the soffit. And if you can just see the little tiny vent right underneath all of that, that's called a gable vent. The problem with this was the fascia's fine, the soffit's fine. I would have liked to have seen soffit vents, which there was none. But the bigger issue here was there's no drip edge. So if it rains, the wind's blowing, it can blow up underneath the shingles, get behind the fascia, and rot the wood. So basically the drip edge, it holds the shingles up. and it keeps water from penetrating behind the fascia. Okay. See the picture there. Okay. All right. The downspouts, I'm pretty anal about downspouts. The only reason I am so anal about downspouts is because I've seen so much damage from that water discharging right next to the house, and it heaves foundations. So as you can see in this picture, this lower, would be your lower left if you're looking at it, that one was plugged solid with leaves. This one on the top was smashed shut, and this one next to the fence here, it's just too close to the house. So we always want to see those. I like to see, they sell them at Home Depot, Menards, the flexible plastic, just to put it on the end of the downspout and get it out 5-6 feet. This will cause more damage to your house than pretty much everything, is that water just sitting right next to the house. The other thing is you want that grading to be usually, I don't know, for every foot, it should be an inch higher. So from the house going out, it should be 6 inches higher than, does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense there, but you want the grading to be sloping away from the house, and not towards the house. You want all the water. That's why you have soffits on a house. It sticks out usually a couple feet. And the reason they do that is so that the water from the roof doesn't come directly next to the house. So, okay. This picture is pretty obvious. You see this dark brown piece that's flapping in the wind. That's the fascia right now. If you catch it now, it's a simple fix. You just take a couple little siding nails and you just tap it back in. But if you leave it like that, wind will get behind it and it'll rip the whole piece of fascia off. And this is stuff that you'll see yourself. I mean, it's just when I give you a report, it just gives you kind of an idea of what's going on with the house. All right, this one is, this top picture is the back door. It's a wood door. It's pretty much bare wood. We don't want to see any bare wood, so you would have to stain that. All the wood around it, the wood trim detail needs to be stained or painted. You can see the peeling paint around the trim. Same thing on the front door on the bottom right picture, that's bare wood. So all of that would need to be scraped and painted. And then the bottom left picture is the garage door. It just needs the wood there. You can see is bare wood that needs to be painted. So you don't want to see any bare wood on a house. All right. This picture here this is the overhead garage door, and where the siding met the trim, it was all rotted right there. The siding is actually pulling away from there's siding actually underneath this siding, and it just wasn't installed correctly. So my suggestion to her was the easiest fix I would just wrap all of that wood all the way around the garage door, overhead door, with aluminum. Otherwise, you'd have to peel all the siding back off and fix the siding behind it, and it's just too much work. For a rental property, try to keep it simple, right? All right. Okay, remember the pictures in the front of the house, they look great, right? There was no problems, everything looked great. Well, then you come up to the window and you could see the peeling paint. These were casement windows in the front. I couldn't get them open. They were stuck shut. The other thing is, I don't know if it's in this one, but the glass, the seals were broke in the window itself. So if you've ever seen a window that looks like it's like condensation in between the glass, or like a white chalky, that's usually because the seals are broken and you can't fix it. The windows would have to be changed. And then if you look at the bottom right picture, all the windows were pretty much in that shape where the glazing was coming out. The windows were all bare wood. So by the time you go and paint all of those, you still have old windows. So my recommendation to her was that she's going to need new windows. I think it had one new window in the bathroom, but the rest of them all needed to be changed. All right, now we're getting into the good part. You see all these, this is all the foundation. When we're walking around the house, we look right next to the foundation. We see if there's any cracks. Sometimes it's just cosmetic cracks, but when we see them on the outside, we want to make sure when we go inside that there's no cracking. So this one had, you could see somebody tried to make some repairs here with some, I don't know what that is, some kind of caulking or something. So, and it wasn't done professionally. I just a homeowner trying to stop water. So, all right. All right. Remember that one gutter I was showing you, or the downspout right here? You see that crack right behind the downspout there? That's where the water's just dumping right there. Well, when we get into the basement pictures, I'll show you exactly where that crack is and right where that downspout is. Okay, there's a few things we look at as far as bushes. We don't want any bushes or trees touching the house. Bushes attract insects, they hold moisture, they rub up against the house, whether it's siding or wood, and it rubs the finish off. So we don't want anything touching the house. And the other thing we look at, if there's a lot of trees, we want to make sure that the trees are not hanging over the roof. All right, this was a dilemma here, right? The front porch, it's not constructed well. Everything was solid, but the problem is, if you can see the posts, they're kind of leaning out. The steps were uneven. So in this case, I don't know what I would have done with this. I don't know if I would just power wash it and stain it, or if I would actually just put a smaller little porch. You don't need a porch running across the front of the house. So then in the back, it's a monster deck. If you're keeping this as a rental property, I would definitely, because you have to maintain this. If this is a rental, your tenants aren't going to take care of it. And Karen told me that she was talking to the neighbor, and the neighbor told her that he built that deck like 3 years ago. Well, look at the rails, the handrails at the top. It's the bottom picture here on the right. It's all, I could stick my finger right through it. It was all rotted. So they probably, my guess is they didn't use treated wood. Treated wood is made for outdoors. I think that they just use regular wood. So if this was my rental, I would probably just get rid of this whole deck. And if you look where this chair is at the bottom left, straight forward about 5 feet is the patio door. I would just put just a small little deck right off of that, and that would be all I would do with that, and get rid of this, because there was so much rotted wood on this deck. It would cost you a lot to fix it, and then you still have to maintain it. So as a rental, as a flip, it would be fine to keep it, just clean it up, fix the bad wood. But for a rental property, I wouldn't want the maintenance of that. More rotted wood, and it's all around this was kind of like at the bottom of the deck to keep animals out and stuff like that. But almost all of it was rotted. And if you see while he's scrolling through here, this is all the stuff that I check. Some of the stuff just for your information. So when you get the report, it tells you all of the stuff, how the house is made, what it's made, you know, what the floor joist is, if it's block foundation, if it's a concrete foundation. So, okay, stop there. You will see the top right picture. Remember the crack what I was showing you just a little while ago behind the downspout? You see how it's all wet right there? That's from the downspout dumping too close to the house. So if you could see, my little sign language is, that's the way the wall is bowing. The wall is supposed to be straight up and down, and it's curved in the middle. And if you could see on the bottom right, you see how this big line, white line here, right down the middle of the wall? It's probably probably almost an inch gap in there that they filled with caulk. So that's how much the wall is bowing in the middle. So now do you guys see why it's not a $15,000 rehab? She had it would cost her probably $15,000 to $20,000 just to fix this basement, because 3 out of the 4 walls are bowed, and there's water in the basement and water in the corner. And there's multiple things that cause that. 1 is all the downspouts. 2 is the gutters were clogged. 3 is we've had a ton of rain in the last 2-3 weeks. And then to top it off, the sump pump wasn't working. So if you can't get the water away from the house, it's going to create a lot of damage in the basement. And that's actually, in that corner was actually starting to mold. So, all right. And you can see again, there's another pit wall that's bowed. And you have another corner where a downspout was, where that was soaking wet. That little piece, the top left, that's a piece of carpet that they left behind, and that was sopping wet. So, and then there's more pictures of the cracks in the foundation, one going all the way down the wall. And the funny part is, this isn't a bank. This is a private seller. When you sell a house, they're supposed to disclose any kind of foundation issues or water seepage, and they said there's nothing wrong with it. So you can't go by what everybody says, right? So, all right, next. Okay, so with me pointing to this toilet, it's not because I'm telling you, I'm just pointing to it because when I stepped on it, it was super soft. Like I thought I was going to go through the floor. So I went back down in the basement, and this bottom right picture is actually where you see how it's all white and wet, because the toilet was really loose and it's been leaking. I don't know who knows for how long, but it rotted the wood. And in another picture, I'm going to show you what they did to repair it. Now this top right one, I don't know I've never seen anything like that. It looks like something was chewing on it, but at the same time, if you can look at the top right picture, those lines going through the wood like that, typically that's kind of what it looks like with termites. But we couldn't determine because it was only in that little 12 to 18 inch range there. That's all the damage. So all the way down the wood, each way, all the other floor joists, I didn't notice any problem just in that one spot. So we scroll down, I think maybe the next pictures. Okay, yeah, that's it. So that spot I just showed you where that toilet was leaking, they put a floor jack with a 4x4. So my guess is the floor was starting to sink, so it probably rotted out the floor joists. So instead of fixing the floor joist, they just did a temporary fix with a 4x4 and a jack. So, I mean, those floor joists can be fixed just like that termite piece, that was kind of rotted out. That can be fixed also. And we do what's called sistering them. So what you would do is just take another board just like what's there, and you run it from the main beam to the end of the wall, and you just sister it. That's what they call sister. And then now you have 2 pieces of wood, and you screw it every 16 inches on a diagonal. and that'll fix the bad wood. This bottom or this right side picture is under the kitchen sink, and the kitchen sink was leaking who knows for how long. To do that kind of damage to the subfloor, it had to go through the kitchen cabinet and into the subfloor to make that all wet like that. So it was so I'm doing this a little bit out of order, but that's just the way the report comes in. So here's some more. This is the same, different joist pocket, but the same sink that was causing the wood to get wet down there. All right, the electric. See, we tell you what size service you have. When we're outside, we check the service. This was an overhead service, so we check make sure that it has what's called a drip loop. Drip loop is where it comes in from ComEd pole into the service itself. When there's like these big, they look like big U's or J's or whatever you want to call them. And the reason they're like that is because if it's raining real hard, you want the water to go down. You don't want it to go into the mass. The water and electric don't mix. So in this panel, I took a picture of that because there was, I believe, make that, did I put any notes on this one, Hugo? All right, just keep going down. I think there's an issue here. Now in this, the wires don't match. See, we look to see what size breaker it is. You see how this picture, you got bigger wire and you got smaller wire. This bottom breaker is a 15 amp, and that's the correct wire size. The one above it's a 15 amp, but it's the wrong wire size. So either the breaker needs to be upgraded to a 20 amp or the wire needs to be changed, but nothing was labeled. So I don't even know what it was feeding. So, but when the wires don't match the breakers, that's what starts fires. So we always try to pull the panel and we try to check that for you. The wiring in the basement, I know this is Lansing, and I've done a rehab in Lansing. So I know that all this BX, see this top right picture, you see that corrugated looking wire going up into the floor. They want to see conduit, which is the pipe right below it. So anything that they can see, all of that is BX, all that would have to be changed. They don't allow it. So you have to, you're the rehabber, you're the new owner. They might allow it or let it slide if it's a homeowner, but you're an investor, they're going to make you change it. All right. Now, the outside outlets, they need to be GFCI protected. What means is there's like a mini breaker in there. Also, you can't use these little metal covers anymore. They want them in weather-tight boxes. So if you've ever seen a house where it's got a big, ugly bubble on the outside in plastic, that's what they're requiring now. So anything outside needs to be GFI protected. Anything within 6 feet of a sink, meaning a kitchen sink, laundry sink, bathroom sink, all needs to be GFI protected. So that outside outlet will need to be changed. It didn't even work. There was no power going to it. Then on the bottom picture, we have a tester and we test all the outlets on this house the power was on. This outlet down here, there was multiple outlets throughout the house. On the reports, if there's multiple, I just put a note in there that there's multiple problems. Otherwise, the report, it's already long enough. If I put 8 more pictures of the same thing, the report just gets kind of redundant. So, excuse me. All right. Smoke, that's the only smoke detector in the house. It didn't work. Another thing I know about Lansing is they don't allow wireless smoke detectors. They want them hardwired, meaning you have to run a smoke detector to each bedroom, and it has to be hard piped, and it has to run all the way down to the panel, and has to have its own breaker on its own circuit. So that's that's a big expense. You got to pay an electrician to open the walls up, run new pipe, new wire, this all the way up into the attic, and they have to be interconnected. So if one of them goes off, they all have to go off, and then you have to have a carbon detector also within 15 feet of a bedroom. So they would have to add that, and they also will want a smoke/carbon somewhere close to the furnace. So, and in almost every village, especially if you're doing a flip or a rehab, it's going to be like that. So the only difference is some cities will allow wireless, which they're about $80 for a set. It's a way cheaper to do it that way. But this village, I tried fighting them and they just wouldn't budge. So, all right. Furnace, that was actually fairly new. It wasn't that old. So I don't think I had any pictures of that. The air conditioner, can't remember if it ran or not, but I do check those if it, the temperature is needs to be 65 degrees or warmer to turn them on, or we can damage them. So sometimes when it's cold out, it's the luck of the draw. Hopefully they work. I always take a picture of the water meter and where the shutoff is, because usually in case of emergency, I just do that on every inspection, whether you're an investor or a homeowner. You're a homeowner, you're buying a new house. If you end up springing a leak, where's the shutoff, right? So. All right. The water heater was brand new, a year or two old. Couple issues here. See this yellow line here? That's the gas line. That's a homeowner special. I don't like to see that. That should be hard piped. So I would expect that the homeowner did that, right? So remember, there's no carbon monoxide detectors in the house, right? This bottom picture, that's the vent, that's carbon monoxide that comes out of this water heater. It was half on and half off when I checked it, and the guy just moved out. So that was like that while he was living there. He's lucky to be alive. That's very important. That should have 3 screws holding it in, and it should be secured to the top. Very, very important. That's very dangerous. People die all the time from smoke, from carbon monoxide. And that's one of the reasons. This isn't a great picture, but this is the sump pump. It was plugged in, and the pit was totally full, and the float was all the way up, and it still wasn't working. I wasn't putting my hand in that. That was pretty nasty. I mean, as soon as you walked in this basement, it smelled really bad, like mold. And that's one of the reasons. The sump pit was filled with water. There's water on the floor. The laundry sink was plugged solid, and there was standing water in the laundry tub. So you can usually smell it. It's very distinct. The bathroom sink, you can see the little puddle of water in there. It finally went down after 10 minutes. So I would recommend rotting out all the plumbing and rotting out the main drain. Here was the kitchen sink. Both, I didn't realize that it was plugged, and both sides, it took about 10 minutes for this water to go down in this sink. And remember, I showed you the pictures in the basement where the floor was all wet. It's because when I looked up in there, the faucet was pouring water. So I can't believe that he didn't fix, what's a kitchen sink faucet, about $75 maybe. So, all right. And that's my sign language for a leak. You can't see, it's hard to take a picture of water leaking down into the cabinet, but it was, the whole bottom of the cabinet was destroyed. So that was leaking for a really long time. And then remember I was saying that this is the laundry tub, and see this right side, that was actually water, but it was sitting so long that it turned black. And then the other side is the water I just ran, and that was clear, but it wouldn't go down. In my inspections, I don't nitpick houses. I don't, if it's got peeling paint, especially if it's an older house, I'll call it out because it could be lead-based paint. But I don't do a whole lot on the interior pictures because usually you're going to paint it, you're going to put new flooring. In some instances, you might put new trim and new doors. So the reason I took a picture of this was because it had a new roof on it, but that roof was probably, they had no choice but to change it. And that was probably, the roof was actually leaking into the house, and that caused that. So that would probably have to be just scraped and maybe even cut the drywall out and repair it. And there's the front windows. Remember I was talking a chalky, milky look, right? No matter how much you wash the inside or outside of that window, you're never getting rid of that milky look. Plus, these were casement windows, and neither one of them opened. So that's why I told her she needed the new windows. So for the new windows for that house would probably run her about anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 to replace all the windows. So you guys doing the math yet? Got new windows, got basement problems, got to paint the whole house. This is the patio door, the rear patio door. That corner right there, I could stick my finger all the way through. It's all rotted. So definitely need the new patio door. And this is where I was talking about, you put that little deck off the back of this, just wide enough, just big enough to, with a couple stairs, a couple handrails, and call it a day. She wanted this report because she was going to go for a reduction. So that's why I added all of these pictures of the bad missing drawers. And this is the bottom left. That's the bottom of the cabinet. So if you look at your kitchen cabinet and, it doesn't look like that, I'm sure. But the whole base of it was just rotted out and just laying on the subfloor. And then all the cabinet doors and drawers were pretty messed up. So when you guys are going for reduction and that's what you're doing, just tell me and I'll make these reports pretty juicy. All right. Now we're up in the attic. All right. So it had 2 points of access. One was in the front bedroom. And another, let me just say this real quick. If the house doesn't function properly, whether you're doing a flip or a rental, it's going to be very hard to rent it and it's going to be very hard to sell it. In this case, I think if I was to guess, I believe this was a 1-bedroom house, and then they enclosed the sunroom in the back. So with that being said, you have to walk through the kitchen and go into the bedroom to go out the back door or go into the basement. And the back bedroom was kind of the size of a walk-in closet, so very, very tiny. So that was another reason I told her that this probably wasn't a good property for her. So you can see, we go up in the attic, we see what it looks like. This side wasn't too bad. The only thing thing I see here is this bottom left corner picture. That's the kitchen vent just dumping in the attic. That should actually be going out the roof. The insulation on the bottom right looks good. No problems there. Okay. This chimney, you see how it's all crumbling? You see that, I don't know if you could see that, but looking all the way at the top of the picture, the side of the picture, it's like all water stained. It was actually dry, but that was right where that drywall was that I just showed you, that was bubbled. So this roof was, in my opinion, was probably leaking pretty bad. All right, so these bottom two pictures, that's the start of the other attic access right by the back bedroom. And I had to actually touch this because it almost looks like fire damage, that bottom left, if you look at that picture. But it's not. It's just, I didn't test it, but it looks like it's mold to me. It's kind of smelled like mold. So, and the same thing with the right. I just take a couple snapshots. Usually when you guys are, if you're not getting a report, I usually will take a couple pictures and show them to you when I climb out of the attic. So, but that mold would have to be remediated. This is another picture. So this is all in that one. These last three pictures here are all in the back side of the house. So, and to remediate this attic, you'd probably be looking at about maybe $1,500 for them to clean it, encapsulate it, and give you a certificate saying that it's mold free. All right, we already talked about this vent for the top right one. That was for the kitchen vent. This bottom picture here is actually the exhaust fan for the bathroom. So it's taking out all of the steam when you're taking a shower. And that was just dumping in the attic also. On the side that was all moldy. So that could have been contributing to it too. So that's, so this was a bad house for her. You know, I mean, she was overpaying. Me and Hugo were talking about that last night. She was overpaying for the house. Her repair budget was not realistic, but she's brand new. So she said, don't make fun of her. So we didn't make fun of her. We're trying to teach her that it's okay to walk away. That's why you have an inspection period when you buy a house. You have 5 days to get it inspected, and it's okay to walk away. Don't just because you have it under contract doesn't mean that you need to buy it. So that's all I got. I think that's the end of it, isn't it, Hugo? And then at the end of the report, everything we just talked about is in a summary, because the reports are about, I don't know, this one was 44 pages, and the summary is only like 3 pages. And it just goes over all the defects of the house in the back. So it kind of can remind you when you go to do your scope of work. And that's another thing. When you're there, you should be writing down everything that's wrong, because if you're going to hire a GC, you need to tell them what they need to fix. They can't guess, and you don't say, hey, what do you think? Because your budget will go from $15,000 to $30,000 if you do what they want to do. So that's all I got, Hugo.
Awesome, George. That was amazing. Thank you very much. So, friends, what we're going to do next, well, before we do a quick analysis on the deal, are there any questions for George? Can you post them through the chat? Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to do a quick analysis on the property. So, friends, we need to think, act as a pro investor. So we should be able to analyze this deal in less than a minute, whether it makes sense or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for this property in ChicagoDealVault and then do the analysis in less than a minute. So 17954 Lawrence. So the address, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the power search. So 17954 Lawrence. Okay, in Lansing. So this is the property. Awesome. So now ChicagoDealVault is doing pretty much most of the work for you. So as you can see, the property is contingent. Let's quickly look at the pictures. So that is the first thing that we need to do. But as you can see, these are the pictures when it was occupied, and it conceals a lot of the damages that were found. I mean, this is like nowhere close to what the actual condition of the property is, okay? So the first thing that we typically do is obviously take a quick look at the pictures. The second thing that you are gonna need to do is location, right? Just make sure that, go to the map, and then there is not near highways, airports, cemeteries, busy streets, rivers, right? So far it looks good. And then what I typically like to do is a street view, right? So just to make sure that, you know, the area looks okay, right? So this is the subject property right here. It looks fairly decent, okay? Well, something to point out that George brought up at the beginning of the inspection was these really big trees, right? So that's something to be aware of because of the roots, right? If there are 50 feet tall trees, you can imagine the roots, how deep they will go, and that can cause damage to the sewage pipes. So now let's quickly take a look at the numbers. So three things that you guys have to know right off the bat when you analyze a property. Make sure you write these down, okay? Because I want to make sure that you engage all your time in the 3% of the activities that are going to make you money in real estate. And those activities are getting properties on the contract at the right price, talking to owners, and talking to listing brokers. So this is an MLS property. So that is one of the things that most ordinary investors make a mistake on. They spend most of their time on 97% of the activities in real estate that will not make them any money. So I want to make sure that you spend all your time on that 3%. In order for you to accomplish that, you've got to just have all the analysis done for you. Not only that, but three things, make sure you write these down. Number one, you need to know how much you can sell this property for, okay? Once you've done the repairs. That is critical. So the ARV of the property, you need to understand how much you can sell this property for. Okay, that is number one. Number two is how much you're going to be investing in the property for the repairs. And number three is how much you should be paying for the property. Okay, and we're going to tell you those three numbers in less than a minute. So first of all, how much will the property be worth, right? Because, okay, so fine, this property is for sale for $43,000, but guess what, friends? That doesn't mean anything to us, right? So the number one thing that you need to know is once I make the repairs, the necessary repairs, how much can I sell the property for? So here we're gonna give you an estimated range for the ARV, but what we like to do is run the comps, like right here. So all you need to do is we're gonna search for a comparable property. So we're looking at a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, about 700 square feet, right? That sold in the last 6 months, right here. You can go as far as 12 months, okay? Within a 1-mile radius. So this is very important, right? Within a 1-mile radius. So just for sake's purposes, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do the 6 month and then just click search and see what the comps come back. So right now there's one comp, and this comp sold for, right here, $66,000, okay? Now, I'm gonna see the location of the comp. It's right very close to it. Now, what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna expand the search, and then we're gonna find all the comps that sold in the last 12 months, okay? Within a 1-mile radius. And then click on search. And then what's going to happen is, okay, so we got a few more properties. So what we're going to do for you is average out how much all these properties sold for, and then update the ARV right here on top. So the new ARV on this property, so this property could be worth, you can sell it for up to $80,000, okay? And then, so that is the first thing that you need to know. Once I make the repairs, how much can I sell the property for? So the most you can make on this property, sell it for, would be about $80,000. Now, the second biggest question is, how much am I going to spend on the rehab? So right here, we're going to give you a range of the potential rehab. So right here is going to be between 12 to 18,000. But friends, we have a disclaimer right here. So when you click on the link, we have a disclaimer. This only applies to areas that are bread and butter, so the BC areas. Okay, so the A areas are the most expensive ones. The D areas are like the war zones, right? So we focus on the BC areas. So Lansing is a B minus C plus area. The second assumption that we have is that the rehab is going to be light to medium, okay, for this number to be accurate. In this case, the rehab is by no means light to medium. The rehab on this property is very extensive, especially the work in the basement, you know, with the foundation or structural issues. That's going to be super expensive. So not only that, but all the plumbing, all the electric systems, they might need to be redone altogether. So to us, this is a God rehab. So it's this number not apply. So in fact, Karen, who had it on the contract, it was listed for 43. She offered 49,000, friends. Okay, so she was gonna pay over asking price. Not only that, but her repair estimate was about 20,000. So it was in accordance to our assumption right here. But the problem is that this only applies if the rehab is light to medium. This property, based on the pictures that we've seen, by no means is a light to medium rehab. Here, you've got to touch every single system in the property, from windows, kitchen, bathroom, electrical, plumbing, windows. Not only that, but also the exterior. You have the porch, the deck. So these would be over at least $40,000 in rehab for this tiny property. Okay, so what we're gonna do next is how much should you offer for this property for this to make sense. So look at this. With the assumption that the rehab is gonna be up to 20,000, the most you should pay for this property for a fix and flip will be 40. The most you should pay if you're gonna do a buy and hold is 48, and then the most you should pay if you're going to do a wholesale is 36. But friends, this is with the assumption that you can spend up to 20,000. The rehab on this is going to be about 40,000. Okay, 35 to 40,000. Okay, being conservative. So therefore, we're going to need to subtract the additional 20,000 in rehab. Okay, so now subtract 20,000 to the 40,000. So in order for you to make a successful flip on this property, guess what? You need to buy this property in the low 20s. If you're gonna buy and hold, it's a little bit more forgiving. So you can buy this property for about 25, 28,000, which is actually what George came up with when he saw the work on this property. He understands Lansing. He right away said, you know, the most you should pay for this property was about 25,000. That's what he conveyed to the to Karen, and he was right on the spot. Okay, so the most you should pay for a buy and hold should be no more than this amount minus 20,000, right? Because that is, these numbers are with the assumption you're gonna spend 20,000, but that's not gonna make it, right? You're going to spend 35 to 40,000. So for a buy and hold, the most you should pay should be 25,000. And if you're going to do a wholesale deal on these, you've got to buy these for a lot less. So 16 to 18,000. Otherwise, it's just not worth it, friends. So this is how easy you can pretty much analyze a deal, right? So this is critical for you to understand the numbers. So again, let's just quickly summarize. Three things that you've got to know. Number one, how much you're going to be able to sell the property for after all the repairs are made. How much you're going to spend on the property for the repairs. And remember, these numbers are very accurate if you're focusing on a bread and butter area, so BC, and the rehab is light to medium, okay? And then finally, you've got to know how much you need to get the property in the contract for. So given these numbers, if we wanted to make an offer, we can quickly make an offer right here by making clicking on the make offer button, but the offer shouldn't be more than 20, 25,000, depending on the strategy. So friends, How are you going to make money on these type of deals? Not over-analyzing, right? Spending time doing the analysis, crunching in the numbers. We're doing all of it for you. So here we tell you the numbers where you need to come in. So what your job is to do your due diligence on seeing the property from the inside, right? Because if you get the rehab number wrong, guess what? All the numbers are going to be wrong. So make sure you see the property from the inside, okay? Because as you saw, these pictures are extremely misleading, okay? Not only that, but as George mentioned, the owner did not disclose foundation issues on the property, okay? And that's a big deal. But you've got to make sure that you see the property from the inside, just to make sure that you're not misled by the pictures. So once you do the inspection, have George do either the walk-in or the written report for you, then you're going to have a better idea as to the extent of the repairs, okay? And then if, in this case, let's assume that you still wanted to go forward on the deal, you would only need to make an offer for like $25,000. That's it, okay? And that's where you're going to need to spend your money, your time on making offers and getting deals under contract. Now, friends, as a recommendation, that it just makes perfect sense and has worked amazing for us, is that we don't take projects where you need to do extensive rehab, like a gut rehab. In this case, you've got to touch every single piece of this property, okay? So we don't take on these projects. We're investors, right? We're not rehabbers. You need to come in and do a light to medium rehab and then move on to the next deal, okay? This project is going to take you at least 2 months, okay? So we like to do projects that take up to like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, less than a month for sure. Those are the light to medium rehab. There's no reason why you need to take on these type of projects when there are tons of deals that require a lot less work, okay? So don't get into these type of projects. That's my personal suggestion, okay? Because if something goes wrong, you're gonna be losing a lot of money. You're holding time, your current cost, your rehab estimates. It's just too much risk. Even though this is a small property, guess what? This is a piece of junk. Seriously, you've got to repair everything. So this would be a no deal for us, right? Absolutely no deal. You've got to move on to the next one. But the beauty of this is that you're going to be able to know that answer in less than a minute, right? Remember, make sure you write that down. How much can I sell the property for? How much am I going to spend on the rehab? And what's the max I should pay for the property? But remember, this is a very good example. Make sure that you see the property, and if you happen to get it on the contract, make sure that you bring George to the property, right? So that he does either the walk-in or the report. Now, how do you get a hold of George? On the preferred partners, right here, look for home inspection, okay? So he's our preferred partner. Right here. Boom. So we're going to give you George contact information for First Advantage, his phone number, email. So make sure that you get a hold of George. And in fact, friends, this coming Sunday, we're going to take you to a property in Streamwood. So that's coming up at 1 o'clock in Streamwood. Let me show you, make sure that you come. George is going to do an inspection for us. That's going to be super, super, super powerful right here. So it's coming this Sunday in Streamwood. This is the property address. Make sure you take a picture. We're going to send you an invite. So George is coming to this property, and he's going to show you the items that you need to pay attention to, things that you can afford to disregard. So it's going to be a very powerful property tour event. Not only that, friends, we're going to do a raffle, and we're going to do a speed networking event. So you're going to get to meet all the members of ChicagoDealVault that come to this event. So make sure you mark your calendar for this Sunday at 1 p.m. in Streamwood, okay? So friends, are there any questions on the line for either George or myself? I want to make sure that we address all the questions while we have George on the line. Okay, so friends, I hope this was beneficial for you. Please make sure that you come Sunday. Okay, there's one question on the line. George, can you touch on pricing for your inspection reports for the walk-in and the written report?
Sure. The average house that we usually do is 1,500 square feet or smaller. So for the walk-in talk is $250. And if you want the report, it's $375. So it's not additional. It's just $250 plus the $125. So it'd be $375. And I do multi-units start at $250 for the main level and the outside, and then it's $150 per unit after that.
Okay, perfect. So as you can see, friends, the difference between the walk-in and the written report is about 125, which is a no-brainer, okay? Because you can utilize that report to get credits from the seller for the repairs. So it's a no-brainer to go with the written report, the pictures. Okay, so friends, for those of you who are members, please make sure that you come next Sunday. And if, friends, for those of you who are online and you do not have access to ChicagoDealVault, please stay online. I have a great deal for you guys to get you started on ChicagoDealVault to make sure that you're able to analyze deals in seconds, have access to creative market deals, and get in touch with the owners directly via email, text, have your deals funded. Not only that, but having access to over 80 preferred partners. Okay, so friends, that concludes tonight's webinar. Thank you very much, George, for your time tonight and your inspection walkthrough on this property in Lansing.
Thanks for having me, and hopefully everybody enjoyed it. And I will see you guys Sunday.
Okay, awesome, George. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.